What a week it has been. At the end of last week, we had the great PlayStation outage of 2025, but unlike 2011, it wasn't for 24 days, it was for 24 hours. Now, there is yet to be any explanation exactly what happened with this, but one thing they did do is give everyone 5 days extra of their PlayStation Plus subscription, but we don't know whether or not our data was breached or not, so take what you can get, I guess. On top of that, we had the Super Bowl this week, and it was one of the biggest blowouts I've ever seen in a Super Bowl. And on top of that, one of the most controversial halftime shows as well. And whether you loved it or hated it, we can all agree the one person that absolutely did hate it was Drake. But you may not hate this, because it turns out in March or April, we may be getting our first old Call of Duty game to come to Xbox Game Pass. Now, this is a rumor and a leak, but what we are hearing is that this time, Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern Warfare 2, will be coming to Game Pass, and you'll be able to play it for essentially free if you have Game Pass. Now, this is just one Call of Duty title, and seemingly they're going to be releasing them every few months to bring people into Game Pass, but there is no rumors as to what is going to be going on with the servers, whether or not they're going to be updating them, whether crossplay will be enabled or not between Xbox and PC Game Pass. We do not know, but we know it should be coming around that time. Also, whether or not DLC you'll have to pay for on top of the subscription to Game Pass or not, nothing has been mentioned with that. The other thing that's returning this week is loot boxes. No, you didn't hear me wrong. After what has gone down with Marvel Rivals basically completely destroying Overwatch, Overwatch did the unthinkable to bring people back to the game, and that is bringing back loot boxes. Now, if you haven't seen, Overwatch 2 has really expensive microtransactions, and they're making a bunch of changes to try to combat what has gone down with Marvel Rivals, and one of them is adding in the loot boxes once again. Now, unlike people are saying, currently you will not be able to buy them, but you can unlock them through challenges, through events, as well as through the battle pass. But let's be honest, the slippery slope is yes, they are just cosmetics as of now, and yes, you can't buy them, but how long will that actually last for? When will the game-breaking items come in, and when will you be able to buy these battle pass? Can we trust them to not do that and just to try to increase player retention, to have these in the game and make the game more fun? Can we trust game developers to do good things? Not often. That is what this show is all about. Well, not really, but what it is actually all about is video games. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Weekly Reload. This is the weekly show where we talk about everything video games. What's new, what's old, and all the news in the video game industry, with a little bit of a focus on Call of Duty as well as first-person shooters. And speaking of Call of Duty, one person you may remember that guy Bobby Kotick? Yeah, the guy that was in charge of Activision and Blizzard and pretty much screwed up everything. Yeah, that guy. He was back in the news because he went on something called the Grit podcast, and he talked about a bunch of things like the way that the company is working now and how they've kind of removed some of the corporate infrastructure, and the studios are kind of off on their own doing their own kind of thing for Call of Duty, which I think is a good thing, and the employees seem to be agreeing with that. But at the same time, he also talked about when they were selling the company. Apparently there was many talks with EA buying Activision, and even before that, before Call of Duty and Guitar Hero were completely bought up by Activision, EA apparently had the opportunity to buy these IPs and turned them down. The other thing that got turned down was Meta and Amazon. Apparently there were talks with those companies also buying Activision, but Bobby Kotick never took it seriously because he didn't think that those companies would pass through Congress and get through government approval, and hence why they went with Microsoft. Now, when they did go with Microsoft, it was negotiated in 3 days. That's really all it took. And the only disagreement was what it came down to with the Game Pass subscription model. Kotick still insists that the Game Pass model is not going to work long-term, but he also said that Microsoft kind of has the money and can make these kind of big bets on these sort of things. But we know Xbox bought Call of Duty, and they're doing with it what they want to do with it. And that, as of right now, is Game Pass. Now, speaking of Call of Duty people getting fired, this wasn't the only Call of Duty person that was in the news for getting fired. The other one, Michael Condrey. Now, he was working on a game called Project Ethos. You may remember this one. It was essentially an extraction shooter meets hero shooter meets Fortnite. It was a very strange thing. Now, he was kind of the head guy at the studio, but apparently it wasn't going very well, so he got fired. Now, the weird part about this is they did put out an announcement saying that he is still advising supervising the game of Project Ethos, but he is no longer in charge of everything, which is a super strange way of explaining that. Now, as we were talking about PlayStation being down last weekend, that wasn't the only time Sony or PlayStation was in the news this week, because this week we got the State of Play. And check this one out.
No one knows how that world came into being. It devoured everything from the past. Only I was left. That was a fatal mistake.
So the State of Play was a thing, and that's really all I have to say about it. It wasn't a great show, but it wasn't horrible. A lot of the announcement that people were expecting, like Wolverine or some sort of Bloodborne remake or anything along the lines of Naughty Dog's new game, was nowhere to be seen. And in turn, we got some other games like the one you're seeing here. It goes by the name of Tides of Annihilation. Another one was Soros, and these kind of games, the theme of this kind of conference was showing off a lot of games that looked very difficult. But some other things that I paid attention to is Days Gone is getting a remastered version, and the cool thing about this is there's some brand new things, like they're upping the graphics for the PS5, but they're also adding new modes like a speedrun mode as well as a horde mode to the game. Another thing that's cool, if you already own this on PlayStation 4, you can pay $10 to upgrade to the PS5 version, and that's all it will actually cost. But if you want to buy it new, you've never played it before, you can buy the game fresh, remastered as well. Oh yeah, one other thing. Check this out. This is Rainbow Six Siege X or Rainbow Six Siege 10, a massive update coming to the game amongst its 10th anniversary. This is overhauling everything. New graphics, new ways to play, deepened tactical gameplay, and we're getting much more information on this on March 13th when they're having an entire showcase from it. And it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be changing about it. The other big one was this.
Wake up now, people!
So Borderlands 4 is a thing, and the interesting thing about Borderlands 4 is we actually got a release date for it. So whether you like the look of this game or not, it simply looks like more Borderlands, and it's one of those games that I can just mindlessly play, trying to get better guns, more loot, that kind of thing, and kind of have on in the background as I'm just mindlessly playing a video game. Now, the interesting thing about this is it was announced for September 23rd. Welcome to the tinfoil hat moment of the week, courtesy of Borderlands 4, because as it turns out, with that September 23rd release date, that's kind of when people thought GTA 6 was going to come out. As it turns out, Borderlands 4 is getting released by Take-Two, the same people who are in charge of releasing GTA 6. Therefore, they're not going to want one of their games to come out in the same sort of launch window that GTA 6 comes out, therefore diminishing the returns on their releases. So what this tells us is that the end of September is no longer really going to be a choice for the release date of GTA 6, which leaves us with either like a month before, which probably isn't going to happen because of Mafia: The Old Country, which is also a Take-Two game that should be coming out around that time. So that leaves us with a month after. So end of October, early November might actually be more so when we're looking at the launch date for GTA 6. Now, while we're talking about Call of Duty and GTA, check this out.
Bunch of company assholes beat you? Fight back, damn it! Hardpoint identified. Kill. Success. Keeping it cheap, ain't nothing.
Friendly HPT on site.
So that was put on Twitter by someone by the name of Grimaron over on Twitter, and I must say, pretty damn cool crossover between Call of Duty and GTA. Now, when we're talking about Call of Duty, essentially there were two things to come out of Call of Duty this week. There were a couple of updates, mainly addressing bug fixes, as well as some changes to ranked play, but we also got the Shadow Hunt event, which is of course the new event which introduced the new TR2 marksman rifle, which is similar to the FAL. This event was different than any other event that we've had so far within Black Ops 6, simply because this one was based off of challenges and not just getting XP or getting kills or anything like that. So I did enjoy this event a little bit more than the other ones, but I will say it's super easy to complete. I completed it in just over an hour. You could definitely do the same whether you're playing Warzone, multiplayer, or zombies. The other thing that came out was a little bit of a teaser trailer for a TMNT event coming to Black Ops 6 as well. Now, we don't know whether this is coming next week with the launch of Season 2 Reloaded, which is also very odd that we got no news revolving around that one this week either. So I would expect next week for that, and potentially next week for the TMNT event, but who knows? It was also really weird that they showed off this like new aesthetic on Urzikstan when we should be getting Verdansk in like a month from now. So if they put like a whole skin on Urzikstan and then launched Verdansk, it would be very, very odd, but that's kind of what it's looking like by this trailer as well. So moving into the games that were launched this week, one that launched early this week and is actually coming out this coming up week is Avowed. Now, this one is actually on Xbox Game Pass, but you can pay extra to play it early, and that's what I was doing. And I must say, I really enjoyed this one, and as of right now, it has an 80 on Metacritic, which is a pretty good score, but I hear people all over the board on this one. I see some reviews saying they absolutely love the game. Other people are saying they don't like the narrative. They don't think the choices that you make in game impact the outcome nearly enough, and others are completely loving it, like I said. So it's kind of all over the place. My opinion on this one is it's interesting. Coming out a week or two after Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you see a vast diversity between the two, both medieval games, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is more so grounded in this kind of like medieval simulator style game, whereas Avowed is more magical and more kind of on rails, if you will. It's still an open world game, but it is telling like a tighter narrative than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 does. But I still think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 might tell their story in a bit better of a way, simply because a lot of like the conversation that you have within Avowed are them just spewing information at you, which is a little bit overboard at times, but definitely a fun game to play. And the best part about it is 100% the combat. You can kind of feel like Harry Potter in this one if you're doing a build like I'm doing, where you use magic and books and wands and things along those lines. It's a cool game, and I think you should check it out. And like I said, 80 on Metacritic, so pretty good. The other one that came out this week was Elden Ring Night Rain. This one is simply in a beta. They're essentially doing a network test for this game. And if you liked Elden Ring, but you also like roguelike games, and you also like Fortnite, but you also like extraction shooters, this might be one for you. It's not an extraction shooter. It's not a battle royale, and it's not Elden Ring, but it just kind of takes elements from all of those and puts them together. The closest thing that I could really say that this is to is a roguelike game with the combat of a co-op Elden Ring. It's a very, very strange one, and one that you'll definitely have to play for yourself, but I could absolutely see this being a big thing. It's essentially a huge genre of Elden Ring or Souls-like that they are now bringing into a multiplayer way, which is pretty cool. And then kind of the indie game that I wanted to share with you guys this week is one called Keep Driving. Now, this one is a game that kind of reminds me if you played Oregon Trail way back in the day, but this one, also a roguelike, is a driving simulator. You're driving across the country as a 20-some-year-old getting to a festival, and you come into contact with hitchhikers and you run into troubles along the road, whether you're getting pulled over by the cops, hitting potholes, seeing ducks, seeing roadkill. You fight off these distractions using cards. So it's a card game, roguelike. It's a lot of fun. If you just want a chill game to play, this is definitely one worth checking out. And oddly, this one is sitting at an 85 on Metacritic, so even better reviews than Avowed. Now, games coming out this week, the first one we have is Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. This one is made by Don't Nods, the same people that made Life is Strange. If you've never played any of these games, they are very heavily narrative driven, and it's essentially like playing a movie. If you've ever played any of the Telltale games, think that style thing, and it's being released in episodes. Now, I believe if you have PlayStation Plus, this one is coming out day one on that for free, so you can check it out if you want to. But I love these narrative driven games. They tell really good stories, and I'm curious to see what this one is all about, as there's some like magic style elements in this one, and generally speaking, Don't Nod can tell a pretty good story. The other one that is coming out is Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. interesting title and an interesting looking game. If you've ever played a Like a Dragon game, you kind of know what you're getting with this one, and definitely looks like one that'll be pretty good and pretty in-depth. So if you're into any Like a Dragon games, you're definitely going to want to check this one out. But that brings us to an end of this episode of the Weekly Reload. This is something that I've had a vision for a show on the channel for a long time, and you guys are always leaving really positive comments. And if you like this series, I think this was the longest episode that we have made, so be sure to hit that like button. And if you enjoy it and want to see it continue, that's the best way to do it, is showing me by hitting that like button, and share it with a friend. If you have friends that like video games, share it with them. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I've got lots of videos coming out this week, and of course I will see you next Sunday for another episode of the Weekly Reload.